So first of all, thank you so much for taking the time out of your evening to come on and speak to myself. And before we get started with anything though, how are you actually doing?
I'm good. This is a really busy time of year, personally, but also with the band. We've been doing a lot of kind of playing and touring, and that's how I like to be.
Yeah, it's a good problem to have if you're playing in a band that you're busy.
Absolutely, and for a long time there wasn't very much kind of going on at all. So to be able to get out and play is marvellous.
So as I was going to say, Matt, this is going to be episode 1 of season 3. So you've got the privilege of opening up season 3, being the opening act for everyone to follow afterwards. But it's very much a sit-down chat. It's not a Q&A format. So we just like to talk about yourself. We'll talk about yourself and your relationship with music. We'll talk about the band, what the future plans are, and everything that fits in between as well. But what I always do with my guests is I go back to the very beginning. So where originally are you from?
I am from Bedford, which is about 50 miles north of London in England. Yep. And I have lived in that area, not in the exact same place, but certainly that area for like my entire life.
Yeah. And from a young age, were you exposed to music from a young age?
I would say so. Yeah. So when I was 7 or 8, I had a friend at school that was really into Elvis Presley. Right. Okay. And I think even at that age, even if you didn't know the music of Elvis, you knew the character. It was still had that kind of pop culture resonance. Yep. And he just played me a load of stuff, and I loved it. I loved the energy of it, and it was all new. So I rushed out and bought some Elvis Greatest Hits CD.
The thing is, you're maybe not playing that style of music, but as a musician, you can certainly appreciate that. Okay, Elvis was the front man, but he had some backing band behind him.
Oh, for sure. And this is where I'm going to show my ignorance, because he had these amazing players. And I know particularly his guitar player, whose name it just escapes me. We're going to sign off today, and it's going to hit me like a bolt of lightning. Yeah. But, all of those arrangements, as you say, he was the face of it. He was the front man, tremendous voice. But there was also this whole other side to it.
Yeah. I mean, one of my favourite bands is The Doors. And obviously they were very well known for not having a bass player. It was the Ray Manzarek on keyboard played the bass with his left hand. But in the studio, they used to use session bass players because it came across in the recording better. And their last couple of albums, they used Elvis's bass player.
Oh, I never knew that.
Yeah, so songs like LA Woman and Roadhouse Blues and all that is Elvis's bass player playing on them. So it's pretty cool. Pretty cool. But so obviously your friend introduces you to Elvis, completely new, something different, and he'll still be influencing people 50 years from now, when we're all probably gone. But at what age then did you discover your own musical taste? When did it change?
Well, it was a few years after that. I suppose with like rock music in particular, when that took over, I was 12 years old. And so this is like early 2000s, and there's new metal, like Linkin Park, Limp Bizkit, those kind of bands. There's also all the pop punk bands coming through, Blink 182 and Green Day, and but also there were these video games like the Tony Hawk's games, and the Grand Theft Auto games, which especially Vice City, which I think the soundtrack of those two in particular, Tony Hawk's and Grand Theft Auto Vice City, really shaped my interest and excitement in rock and metal.
I forgot about the Tony Hawk one. Tony Hawk one was brilliant, as well as the game itself.
You know, there's a band that tours, and it's like a tribute band, but to that soundtrack.
All right, okay.
And I can't remember what they call themselves, but I really want to go and just have that nostalgia hit.
I was going to obviously ask you then, so who were some of your influences back then when you were first starting out? Who were some of the big influences, like the big bands that you were starting to look up to?
Oh, so right at the very beginning, it was Linkin Park, Limp Bizkit, Marilyn Manson, Rob Zombie. I think those would be the main ones. I was really big into nu metal.
Yeah.
But then I heard Number of the Beast by Iron Maiden, and that was it. And I'd locked into that completely.
It's funny that you say that. I think I'm probably about maybe 10 years older than yourself, so I'm a whole generation behind you. So similar to yourself, I was about probably 10, 11, and it was Metallica that I discovered. But I was coming right when I was starting high school, and that it was 1993, 94. You've got all the grunge stuff. Then the new metal came out after it. But all these bands that we're talking about just now, they're still here 25 years later because, simply put, they're good.
Absolutely, and it's interesting that would be kind of, I suppose, for yourself, the grunge kind of bands, the early 90s, and then the nu metal, and then you live through like a fashion, like a music fashion.
Yeah.
And this would be the same, in the 80s with the hair bands or like the synth pop, the 70s, progressive rock and punk, and you live through it. And there's a lot of bands that don't make it out.
Yeah.
They don't have the quality in the songwriting or like, or even the musicianship, like to think about Linkin Park and all of the, the chatter around them coming back. And when I think about it, like Chester Bennington, I don't know if I would go quite so far as to say he invented a way of singing.
Mm-hmm.
But saying it, I think he did. I really, that melodic, tender vocal combined with this just absolutely ferocious roar.
Yeah.
I think he was the first person to do that really well.
I can't think of it happening much before it now. I'm sure there's other people probably doing it, but certainly on the scale of that band, the band was enormous when they first came out. So he was definitely one of the pioneers. I still think they were maybe one of the last big bands to actually have a style of music that hadn't been done before. So what I kind of discussed with previous guests was going right back to the 60s or the 50s. Every 10 years you were getting bands creating a new sound that had never been done before. Even up into the 90s, you look at the start of the 90s, you've got obviously the grunge, you've got the new metal that's in the middle, but you've still got like your Metallica, you've still got your Iron Maiden, you've still got your Pantera, all these type of bands. And 2000 hit and you were getting like your Linkin Park, maybe Deftones, that sort of thing. After that though, there's lots of great bands came since then. I don't know if they've reinvented the wheel as such.
Yeah. That's interesting.
Every time I listen to a new band now, it can be brilliant, it can be great, but it's not a sound that I've not heard before. I always go, that sounds like a cross between blah blah blah. I kind of feel like it kind of got to a point where everything that could be discovered had been discovered, and then it was just a matter of new bands coming out and putting their own spin on it.
I'm trying to come up with a contradiction to that, but I can't. I really got into Bring Me the Horizon recently.
Yep.
And before, that kind of music was like, that was the antithesis of what I was into at school, like screamo and deathcore and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But I heard the Post-Human releases, the two that they've done, and I was so excited. I was blown away by just the combination of elements. And that's maybe the freshest thing that I've heard in a while. But even still, it's what you're saying. It's like, oh yeah, it's kind of like elements of Linkin Park in that, the electronic elements.
Yep.
And then the screamo and maybe even some kind of pop, almost hip hop elements. Mm. But perhaps that's what it is. It's the combination that makes it unique.
I mean, in the 2000s, I remember the big wave of new metal bands, and it was like your Trivium, Bullet for My Valentine. They're all great bands, and they've released some great songs. But to me, they just sound like Metallica or Iron Maiden that I've already heard before. They didn't recreate anything. What they done was great. But I suppose that's what happens. And I don't know, maybe I'm looking in the wrong places. Maybe there is new stuff coming out that I've just not discovered yet. That's the beauty of music, is that there's always new stuff coming out to be discovered. And you just need to know where to look, I suppose.
How about Opeth?
I've not heard much of their stuff. Is it worth checking out?
If you like... It's a really interesting band. So when they started out, it was, I suppose you'd call it death metal with a little kind of bit of black metal. And I think the first album is all harsh vocals.
Right, okay.
And they'd have these gentle acoustic passages that would punctuate, that heavy riffing. Mm-hmm. And then as they developed, those acoustic passages grew, so they'd be more frequent, then there'd be this melodic singing, and then there'd be some kind of progressive rock influences, mellotrons and Hammond organs, and then kind of in the middle of their career, I guess we're 2010.
Yep.
I was wondering if that's like the golden kind of window. They really had a sound that I don't think anyone else was doing, which was this kind of combination of that Swedish kind of death metal with 70s progressive rock. Yeah,
I mean, it's crazy, but it's great to discover all these new bands. But give me a wee laugh then, Matt. What was the first concert that you ever attended, the first professional concert?
It was Iron Maiden.
All right, what tour was it? Do you remember?
Yeah, I remember it vividly. It was the Dance of Death tour, Birmingham NEC, 2003. I think it was like around this time of year, actually, November, December.
Yeah, I do remember it because I went to the one in Glasgow.
Oh, great.
And they played in December, so it probably would have been around this time.
Yeah.
But they're outstanding.
I think I just screamed non-stop for like 2 hours.
They're probably unique, though, because it's not just a band playing, it's an entire show. Spectacle. I mean, even just to watch it, it's amazing.
It ruined me really, because the first concert film I ever saw was Live After Death.
Right. Okay.
And Live Without a Net, Van Halen.
Right.
And just the level of energy between those two, and the spectacle, mostly the Live After Death. And I saw that, and I was like, oh, this is what it's like then. This is a rock concert. Yeah. And
they don't go to everyone after that expecting the same thing.
I'm a bit of a stickler. I don't mind like a minimalist production. And of course it depends on the band, but I do think you've got to, I don't know, if it's like an established band, if you're just going to get out there in leather jackets and play, I'm just like, oh, come on. You do a bit more.
Yeah, I think it depends on the band, the style of music. I mean, Iron Maiden would look odd walking on stage with nothing. I mean, they could certainly do it. They're good enough musicians. but you expect the show with them. You see a band like Pearl Jam, they just come on, drums and amps behind them, and they just play the songs, and they would look weird if they had fire.
Yeah.
But Matt, obviously, I know that you do bass guitar and vocals. So how did you? Which one came first? First of all, was it the bass guitar or was it the singing?
Oh yeah, I was a reluctant bass guitarist, and then I was a reluctant singer.
So why the bass guitar? Why not the guitar or the drums? Like what was it about the bass guitar?
So around this kind of formative time, 2012.
Yep.
Me and all my mates were into our own little kind of, pockets of music. There was the kids into new metal, the kids really into kind of pop punk, but we were all so excited. And, one guy gets the guitar, one guy gets the drums, and then people started to form little groups, and I was like, I want to get in on that.
Yeah. And
my previous musical experience was playing the trumpet and not practicing and being shouted at by my teacher. And so I resolved I was going to be a guitar player. Mm-hmm. And so I was asking my friends, like, cool, if I get a guitar, if I beg my parents, get a guitar for Christmas, can I be in the band? And they said, well, we've got 2 guitar players, but we need a bass guitarist. And I'd never even heard the word. And I said, well, what's that? And they said, well, it's the guitar, but lower. And I was like, okay, well, cool, I'll get one of those then, and then I can be in the band.
It's only got 4 strings. It's easier.
That's it. So they told me, and I begged my parents, and they relented, even though they've since confessed that they thought I'd play it for 3 weeks and get bored. And it's been, I don't know, 20 odd years now. So
it's money well spent by mum and dad.
Oh, for sure. I still got my first bass. I got it converted to a fretless, so I use it on records and stuff.
And when did the singing come along? Was that later on? And I think you kind of alluded to it there. Was it simply who's brave enough to step in front of the microphone because we need a singer? Yeah.
First band practice. So just the naivety of it. Like we all had 2 guitar players, drummer and me, and I feel like there was maybe someone that was going to sing, but he didn't show up, and so we'll go to the drummer's house, and we'll plug in, and like none of us can play a song, like individually, let alone collectively.
Yeah.
And so, of course, the first thing we do is to decide who's going to sing, and we're just looking around the room, and everyone's like looking at their shoes, looking at their feet. Like, I don't want to do it. And I think I was just so keen to start making some noise that I said, well, I'll do it then.
Yeah.
And having no prior interest and absolutely no prior ability, and indeed would not have any ability for a very long time after volunteering.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was the beginning.
And obviously, the band you're in just now, I know it started around 2004, 2005, is that correct?
Yeah, so actually that is the band.
All right, okay.
So I suppose 2004 would be kind of when we really started to do stuff, like to play out and things like that. But yeah, it's the band that I bought the bass to join, and it's gone through many changes over the years, but it's still going.
So the band has been going for almost 20 years.
Yeah, 20. I kind of think of it as like 20 years this year.
Yeah. So here's a question then for you. I know there's obviously been previous members, people leave, you get new people in. What makes the band work? And I don't mean in terms of success, but what do you think makes an actual band work? Does a band need a leader? Does it need people to, I don't mean this in a bad way, but everyone needs to know their role within the band and be comfortable with it?
In my opinion, every ship needs a captain.
Yeah.
But every captain needs a crew.
Yeah.
And that is an important reciprocal relationship. So you do need to have. It's interesting. It's different now. For a long time, hang on. Let me get my thoughts in order. So until recently, I was always kind of the de facto leader, but it was a role that I never really embraced. And it just kind of happened that way because I suppose over time I'd been there the longest. But also I was always the main songwriter, which was never like a discussion of like, well, I'm going to be, or you're going to, it was just, I like to write songs and I was always bringing them in.
I mean, I've spoke with lots of other bands and asked them the same question, and most will agree there's a difference between a band leader and a band dictator. It's not a dictatorship, but most bands generally have, maybe there's usually one, maybe there's two people leading the band, steering the ship, and the others in the band trust their judgment and they're happy to back them up and let those people steer the ship. But I don't take that away from those band members. Each person equally contributes to the band, but there is maybe one person or two people steering the ship, so to speak.
Yeah, you need that, and it's like any kind of working relationship or working environment. You've got to have that person that's got the vision or got the direction, but then you all need to make it work together.
Yeah. So who is currently in the band? What's the band lineup at the moment?
So the band lineup is, we have Tolis Zavaliaris on guitar.
Okay.
Lucia Lorenza on violin.
Yep.
And Jerry Sadowski on drums.
Mm-hmm.
And we're looking for a keyboard player, so if you know anybody.
It might be a little bit of a commute from Scotland. But and see that lineup of the band, how long have you guys been jamming together for now, that those individuals?
So with Lucia and Jerry, we've been playing live since last September.
Yep.
And they were both involved in the recording of the most recent album. So I guess that relationship goes on a little bit longer kind of in the studio than that. Yep. But Tolis is the new boy. He came in, he did his first show with us in July of this year.
Okay. And you've obviously said that you've been in the studio. I know you've got a new release that has just came out not too long ago. So what is the band set up with regard to songwriting? So is there a main songwriter? Would that be yourself? Do you, and with regard to writing songs, how do you go about doing it?
So what's happening with the previous album and also the album that I'm working on at the moment is I will take the songs, or I have been taking the songs as far as I can in like a demo format, and really focusing on lyrics and melodies, but also structure and arrangement. So kind of getting that, like building the house, building the walls, Yeah.
So are you presenting the band with maybe the skeleton of a song idea? And are you quite happy trusting the other guys within the band that they will add their parts to make this song better?
That's what I hope. So for the forthcoming album, I really hope there's going to be a bit of collaboration, a bit of back and forth, and the opportunity to perhaps actually play the songs together. Mm-hmm. Because with Terra Nova, which we began the recording process during the lockdown, and having musicians in other countries, and so it was a case of here's the song. And I did change some stuff around actually, which was quite interesting. But generally, it'd be a case of like, here's the song, and just go nuts. Yeah. And there wasn't really much kind of direction.
Right. Okay. And well, even looking at the last recording, does the band have a preferred method to how you record? What's the sort of method? Do you use layer everything? Do you start with the drums and layer it from there? Does the rhythm section jam live? Like, what's your setup?
So with Terra Nova, it was generally a case of we'd layer it up. So we were working remotely, we'd get the drums in, and then just kind of pass it round like we had that kind of chain. But with one of the tracks, So Far Gone, which is like a ballad, we had the opportunity to work with Adam Holtzman, who's most known for his work with Steven Wilson, but he was also Miles Davis's musical director in the 1980s. And so this opportunity came along, and he was really keen to do it, but the track wasn't ready. We hadn't even started doing the drums. So I was like, and it's piano led for a lot of it. Yeah. So I said, would you be happy to kind of record to the demo?
Yep.
And he did. And that was a really interesting way of working, because then we're all kind of playing off what he did. Even the drummer, the way that he orchestrated the track, Moyano, who recorded that track. I don't think we would have got that result if we'd done it a more conventional way.
So it's almost like you were forced into approaching your parts all differently from what you would have maybe done that had you recorded it the other way.
Oh, of course, yeah. And, he took those basic kind of keys parts that I'd done and he'd embellish them. So, he'd kind of push here where perhaps on the demo it was a bit flat, or, he plays this absolutely unbelievable Moog solo. Yeah, which has got so much feeling, and so where he does a fast run, the drums might follow that. Yeah, it was great. It makes you approach your own parts in a completely different way. Yeah,
I was on the band's website earlier today, and there's something you guys do that I really like, and it's funny because depending on who you speak to, and depending on what style of music you're talking about, to some people it's very important, to other people it's almost an afterthought, it's not that important. You guys, you spend time on your artwork, on the album artwork, what it looks like. To me, artwork is very important. To me, artwork is part of creating an album. It's as important as the songs. It's as important as the order of the songs. I've spoke with other bands, different styles. Some people, it's almost irrelevant. They don't see it as even being necessary nowadays. But to me, I still love artwork associated with the music. I'm assuming that's something that definitely is a big thing for yourselves.
Oh, absolutely, and I'm really surprised where you went with that statement was not where I thought you were going to end up at all. The fact that there are some people, so I'm not going to say this in any judgmental way at all, because I can only talk from my own experience, but the thought that the artwork could not be important, even if we're being cynical and it's the first impression on Spotify.
Yeah.
Let alone, I want to have something beautiful that represents the music.
Yeah, I mean, the bands, the ones I've spoke to that don't feel it as important, I kind of understand where they're coming from, because it's maybe been folk type music, or it's been maybe a country type style vibe where normally, if you look at album covers, it's just the person standing on the front of the cover holding the guitar or something. It's not a big thing. I come from a metal background. You look at Iron Maiden, Metallica, all these bands. I mean, the artwork stands alone itself. It's that outstanding. But I'm so glad that it's a big thing for yourselves.
Oh man, like the amount of time we spent going back and forth on the most recent artwork. I mean, we have a great designer called Jim Sortsis, who based in Greece, and I don't know if I've ever spoken about this. You're getting a juicy, juicy little tidbit here. So I really like the artwork to be an impossible image and one that you could interpret in conflicting ways.
Yep.
So with Terra Nova, there's this kind of angelic. It could look like it's an angel. It's got wings and it's kind of being formed out of, smoke or the sea or what have you.
Yeah.
But it's a very dark image. So is this like a being of light? Is this a positive creature that's appearing in the cover? Yeah. Or is it the opposite? Or is it something pure that's being destroyed instead of being created? So always try and have some artwork that's going to relate to the music, but also perhaps prompt a little bit of speculation as to what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, I just think it's so important, and I just think it's the finishing touch. If you spend all this time creating an EP, single, an album, you want something that looks cool to go with it. And as you say, if you're getting merchandise, T-shirts, whatever, you want something that is noticeable as well, because there's so much out there just now. How do you stand out from the millions of other bands on YouTube or Spotify or Apple Music or whatever? You need a good album cover that's unusual, that's different, that looks great. It just finishes it off and creates the overall package.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I think as much as we were talking about the difficulty of establishing like a unique sound, I think the difficulty of establishing a unique image, it kind of goes hand in hand with that. Let alone, the onset of AI,
yeah,
and all of that business.
But then, just to throw a spanner in the works, how ironic is it then that Metallica's biggest selling album, which is one of the biggest selling albums in the entire world, is just a black cover?
Could it be any more black? It's like, it's none more black.
No, but I mean, I think we're probably both agreeing for ourselves that artwork's important. And then you go, hold on, the biggest selling album, but it's letting the songs talk. Maybe it wouldn't have worked if that had been their first album, because they've got four iconic album covers before that. Yeah,
they'd arrived. I mean, that's a flex, isn't it? Like they've written this album which kind of redefined the sound of metal and crossed over into the mainstream in a massive way. And they're like, yeah, it just makes it a black cover. Doesn't matter. This is gonna do well. Doesn't matter what's on there.
But and then obviously, as you know, playing in a band, writing, recording. The next thing's performing live. How do you find performing? Obviously, you've been doing it a long time now. Do you still get nervous? Do you get anxiety? Like, do you get anything like that? Are you quite comfortable at this stage with performing live?
Oh yeah, I love it. It's really I can't think of the word. I feel really comfortable. I feel really happy with the other musicians. Jerry Tollis, Lucia have thrown themselves into this completely. And I think I don't know if we've even done 10 shows yet. I think it's 10 or 12. We've got a couple coming up. Mm-hmm. And so to be on stage and have that security, have the crew, laying it down, it's great. And every time we play, something tweaks. It could be just like a suggestion, hey, we should try this, or something goes wrong, but in a good way, maybe, or perhaps something comes out not as intended, and we think, we'll keep that in,
Yeah, that's fine. So here's a wee question then for you: writing and recording songs, performing live. If you had to pick just one to do for the rest of your life, writing and recording only, or performing live only, which one would you pick?
Oh man, as as you started saying that, I knew the answer. I was like, oh yeah, I'm pretty sure. But then I thought about it. Okay, so if it's like gun to my head.
Yeah.
If you're asking me now, I would say writing and recording, because I haven't done my best work yet.
Yeah.
And as much as I love, just the thought, if I was going to do that now, playing live and playing these songs, it would be great. But I think after a while, I'd be like, oh no, I need something new to.
Yeah, I think I would be the same as yourself, because I think it would drive me mad, and if I had a song idea in my head and I couldn't get it recorded down.
Oh, it keeps me up at night. I come in here, I've got like a notepad, and I scribble stuff down and then come back to it tomorrow.
Yeah. So we're obviously heading towards the end of 2024 into 2025. What is the plans for the next year for the band?
So we've got a few gigs lined up for 2025, and like to add a few more to that. But also, I really want to get cracking with some new music. And I hope that we can start to chip away at that early next year, so that so there's not this whacking great big gap between this album and the next one.
So Matt, I like to ask some fun questions just to end things. Mm-hmm. So don't need to worry about it. Am I back in time, anywhere in the world, big gig, small gig, I'll let you decide. What's the one concert you wish you could have attended?
Oh, man. I wish I could have seen... I can't wait to see your reaction. I wish I could have seen the original cast of Jesus Christ Superstar in the 70s.
All right. Okay. I thought you were going to say Elvis. That'd be the second one.
That's it, a close second.
So, similar question then, for your own band, if you could go back over the last 20 years as an audience member and attend one of your own gigs, what one do you think would be quite fun to go back and actually see your own band perform?
The first one. The very first one.
Would you just be like, oh my God?
Oh man, I tell you. So we hired a local football club.
Yeah.
And it's like in a village, so it's tiny. Because we were 13, maybe 14. And so we invited all the other bands in school, including the band of someone's father who had a PA system.
Yeah.
So they came and played. And there's on the bill that night was a band called the 10-Year Prospect, which had a guitar player by the name of Ben Poole, who is these days an incredibly successful blues musician. It tours all over Europe, and he's played with everybody. So he played at that gig, and we were there, and I rented, I think, like a Jack the Ripper top hat, like kind of stovepipe hat.
Yeah.
And I painted my face white, almost like kind of corpse paint style, because I saw something about Alice Cooper saying how he wanted to be remembered. He's like, even if you think I suck, even if you hate the show, you're going to remember. And so I was like, oh yeah, I'll do that. And then we played all our own songs. We didn't play like no covers or anything. I've got it on video somewhere. I'd love to see it.
Thankfully, my first gig was so long ago now that nobody had phones, or only in my memory, and there it shall stay forever as well.
Oh, what did you play at your first gig?
First gig I ever played would have been about 1994, and it was in a community centre, like a scout hall type thing.
Yeah.
And I don't know where we got it from, because we were only maybe, similar to yourself, we would have been maybe 14 at the time. But we got a PA system, and I don't know where it came from, but it was. I don't even know if we had any of our own songs, but I can remember we played some cover songs. So I can remember playing a few Sepultura cover songs.
Cool.
And I can't remember what else. Probably like a Metallica one or something like that, or I can't remember who else now. Maybe. I don't think we were good enough for Pantera or Slayer, so it must have just been probably Metallica and Sepultura. That's what it was meant to be. I couldn't say whether it actually sounded like that, but all I remember was at one point someone used to be able to buy these little strobe lights and flashing lights, and someone plugged it in and then switched the lights off, so we're playing. And of course, none of us had ever played in the dark before, so automatically you've no idea where your fingers are or what notes you're playing, and everything was just cranked up to 11 because you're playing through a PA system for the first time. So it was terrible, but I think everybody's got a similar story to that.
Oh man, that's great. But I bet when you're doing it, it's just you feel like the world is yours, don't you?
Oh, it was great. Back then I had hair and everything. So your hair's flying about and that. But here's another one then. All the millions and millions of great songs that have been written and recorded over the years, what's the one song you wish you could have sat in the recording studio to witness the band recording it?
Bohemian Rhapsody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would have been cool. I'm going to obviously put the rest of your band members... somebody's going to come out of this sounding not very good, but imagine that you have a dead body in the boot of your car. 4 o'clock in the morning, you need to dispose of this body, no questions asked. Which band member are you phoning to help you, and why?
Ooh. Jerry. I'm calling Jerry.
Dare I ask why Jerry?
Jerry, okay, so Jerry is he's a full-time drummer. So he plays with he's a pirate, right? So someone calls him up with a gig, and he goes, and he goes all over the world. He'll go to Dubai for 3 days and just do a couple of shows, and then he's one of those, right? So he's a soldier. I think it would take a lot to phase Jerry.
Maybe he's not going all over the world to gigs. Maybe he's just going all over the place helping people bury dead bodies.
Well, he is freakishly strong and bodies.
That's the drum.
Yeah, but I've seen him pick up, because he's tall and he's kind of lean. I've seen him lift stuff that would just I'd be on the floor in seconds.
So it sounds like he'd be good lifting bodies. He'd be good digging holes, all that sort of stuff.
And he would be sound as a pound. I feel like we'd be able to kind of enter into this like dark pact, and on the understanding that I would come and help him if ever he was in a similar situation.
We'll not say any more about that. And last question for yourself. Who is your Mount Rushmore for bands or musicians? So who are the 4 for yourself, whether it be performance, songwriting, the overall package? Who are the 4 for yourself that you just think are great?
Oh, man.
And I know that the answer could probably change tomorrow and the next day and the next day, but for today, who are the 4 for yourself?
Maiden.
Yep.
Queen.
Mm-hmm.
Andrew Lloyd Webber.
Yep.
I would say that. And oh damn, that 4th one. It's always that 4th one that's the trickiest. Black Sabbath.
That's cool. It's one of my favourite questions, that one, because regardless of how many people I ask, it's always 4 different answers, and it doesn't even relate sometimes to the style of music. You know, if you listen to rock music, it might not be rock bands or that, but it's interesting, and there isn't a right or a wrong answer. That's the beauty of it as well. But Matt, thank you so much for coming on and chatting. It's been good speaking to yourself. If anybody watching this, if they're looking for future gig dates, you've got the website, you guys are on social media, you've also got your latest release that came out, so it's available all different platforms, so definitely check that out as well. But thank you for coming on. It's been good speaking to you.
It's been great, Ian. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a real thrill, and I would love to come back sometime when we've got a new album out. If you're up
in Scotland as well, give us a wee shout, and I'll come along, cheer you on.
That'd be great. It's only a matter of time. We're working on it.
Okay. Get that hat.
Paint your face white. I'll be looking for you.
That's it. Thanks, Matt. Cheers. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ian.
Cheers, pal.